All right. Good evening. Welcome to a story of how God used a courageous, young, beautiful Jewish woman named Esther. As a young child, her parents died. The Bible doesn't say how, but then she went to live with her cousin Mordecai. He raised her and loved her as if she was his own daughter. Mordecai taught her to have a profound respect for her Jewish heritage and how God led his people over the ages to carry out his plan. To this end, I introduce you to the performance of A King's Decree, A Queen's Decision.
Just wait until
Our story opens in the palace of King Ahasuerus, as he is having a feast to show the people his riches and to show his generous nature in allowing them to celebrate with him. While he is having his feast, the queen, Vashti, was also having a feast for the women. After showing off for 6 days' celebration, the king realizes he hasn't shown the people his wife. With the 7th day as the last day of the feast, he calls for her.
My man, summon my wife Vashti. I must show her off to these people. She is so beautiful.
yeah, let's show her off.
Show her off. Show her off.
Your Highness, the king requests your presence in the throne room immediately.
No way. I'm having way too much fun at my party.
But Your Highness, the king says he'd like you to be in there.
No, I'm not going, and you can't make me.
Yes, Your Highness. Your Highness, the queen refuses to come.
She does what? The queen does not dictate to the king. Where are my counselors? We must meet on this at once.
So what should we do about the queen?
Well, she has not only offended you, she's provided a bad example for every woman in the kingdom.
I can just hear my wife right now. If the queen don't listen to the king, why should I listen to you, Hurry?
Please, Your Highness, if it pleases you, write a royal decree regarding Her Highness Vashti, so that she can no longer come before you, and take away her royal estate and give it to another woman better than her.
Yeah, and include in that decree that all wives should give reverence to their husbands, both great and small.
I agree. Make it so.
Sometime later,
Oh, why did I make that stupid decree? I miss my wife Vashti.
Your Highness, if it pleases you, why don't you gather together all the beautiful young maidens in your kingdom and pick from among them the one that pleases you the most?
Perhaps you are right. Perhaps if we gather all of them, I will find that one that will replace and mend this broken heart.
Send off the scribes.
Esther, you've been chosen among many beautiful young maidens, so that the king can choose among you.
Me? Oh, Mordecai, I'm not fit to be a queen, and I'm a Jew.
Don't tell them this, but you must go. We have to obey the king's decree.
I will miss you very much.
I'll be at the gate daily to check on you, and we can communicate through messengers.
a few of the maidens who had yet to be shown to the queen gathered together. First one, then another. Isn't it just like women?
Silly rabbi. Dead rabbi.
I'm sure they'll be along any moment now. And they came from all parts of the empire to be here.
Where's our other maidens?
I don't know, maybe that means we get chosen.
What were you saying, David? Here they come. Hide it, hide it, hide it. I think the king should choose me over you, twin, because I'm older.
Oh, so much older by 5 minutes. And don't forget, I have been in 3 beauty contests, and I won them all.
How could I possibly forget? How many times have you reminded me that you have won them all? However, I'm still older than you.
Whatever.
Ugh, my hair is so frizzy. I wish it would stop raining.
This mascara always runs on me and makes me look like I have 2 black eyes.
Oh God, whatever you want.
So, Your Highness, has any of those young maidens attracted your attention?
There was this one, the one you brought in last. Her name was Esther. Yes, even saying her name, it makes my heart flutter.
That's bad.
It is. She is so beautiful, but she does not boast about it. She's not always fixing her hair or giggling all the time, powdering her nose. She pleases me. I will have her as my next queen.
And so it came to pass that Esther became the queen. As promised, Mordecai the Jew moved his palace, his place of business, nearer the palace to the gate, so that he could keep in touch with Esther. One day, he overheard 2 of the king's servants plotting to kill the king. He was able to warn the king, and the attempt was prevented.
Oh. Chamberlain, write this incident in the book of records. Be sure to include the name Mordecai. Now, send in Haman.
Sure, yes, sir.
Ah, Haman.
Yes, Your Highness. How may I serve you, Your Highness?
How have you been, my friend?
I've been fine, Your Highness. And how have you been?
I have been less well. I have been so busy lately running this kingdom that I have not had the chance to party more than 3 days this week.
Oh.
I need help running the daily activities. I would like to appoint you as my top commander over all the land. Basically, you will be doing all the jobs that I should be doing. But it is a position that requires much respect, and everyone will bow before you as they do for me. Is this agreeable to you?
I am honored, sire.
And so it came to pass that Haman had frequent meetings with the king regarding what was happening in the kingdom.
Open the gates. Haman's coming. Mordecai, you're supposed to bow as Haman passes by.
I cannot bow to any man. I bow only to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
As time passes, and Mordecai the Jew still refuses to show reverence to Haman, they bring it to Haman's attention.
Sir, Haman. Hang on a second.
Yes, my man. How may I help you?
Have you noticed that Mordecai the Jew does not bow to you when you pass by?
What? Such insolence. Can this really be true? I am the king's right-hand man, and I have a right to demand respect from this man.
Yes, he warned several times, and still he refuses.
Refuses to bow? Refuses to bow? Leave me! I must have time to think. Refuses to bow. Refuses to bow. This must not go on. This cannot go on. I will not allow this to go on. Who does that Mordecai think he is? I can't stand him or his people. For sure, I'll have him killed. And I'll get rid of all of his people, all of the Jews. And if I can talk the king into it, they'll all be gone. I just won't mention the name, Jew. And then I can get their riches and their lands too. Ha! Mordecai will be sorry he ever insulted me.
Ah, yes. Haman, what could I do for you?
Your Highness, it has come to my attention that there is a certain group of people within your kingdom who follow their own laws. Neither do they follow your laws. My Highness, this is not good. Something must be done about it. If it please your Highness, let it be written that they must be destroyed.
You are right, Haman. I would like you to handle this. Take my ring of authority. I give you the power to decree in my name. You may also have my scribes and messengers. You, summon my scribes and messengers and have them report to Haman immediately.
Look, a message from the king's messengers. It's a royal decree. On the 13th day of the 12th month, all Jews are to be destroyed. Both young and old, women and children, all of their personal belongings will be confiscated.
What shall we do?
We've only just got settled. My crops need to be harvested.
Nothing matters anymore. We're to be killed. There's no escape.
Where is God? Why will you let this happen?
Let us all pray in sackcloth and ashes and express our grief to God. Oh, God. Oh, save your people, God. Oh.
If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from the heaven, and will forgive their sins, and will heal their land.
Terrible cries of grief spread throughout the king's provinces as the decree went out.
Oh, God. Oh, save your people.
One of Esther's maids
Deliver us from this
heard Mordecai's
evil
mourning outside the king's gate
God, deliver us.
and informed Esther.
Save your people, oh God.
Your Highness, Mordecai is dressed in sackcloth outside the king's gates, and he wails so. We can't stand to hear his noise.
Mordecai wouldn't do that unless something terrible has happened. Get my chamberlain.
Queen Esther, you summoned me.
Yes. Mordecai is mourning outside the gate. Go find out what has happened to put him in such a state.
Yes, ma'am. Mordecai, the queen has heard that you're mourning. She'd like me to find out what's wrong.
Tell her Highness that Haman has cleverly won favor with the king, and the king has granted his request.
But what does that have to do with you?
The king has granted Haman's request to destroy all the Jews. Tell her Highness that she must go before the king and plead for her people.
Yes, of course.
So that is what has happened. And the king doesn't know that these are my people. But I can't go to the king. It is forbidden unless he invites you. They'd kill me for walking in on the king unannounced. Tell Mordecai the circumstances so he'll know my hands are tied.
Yes, ma'am.
Her hands are tied? Tell her Highness that since she is a Jew, her life is at stake. She must go before the king. Who knows? Tell her this. Who knows that you have been called into the kingdom for such a time as this?
Oh, what an impossible situation. Surely there is some other way that God could save our people. But I believe Mordecai is right. I will go to the king. But tell Mordecai to gather all the Jews and have them fast for 3 days. I too will do so. Then I will go to the king. And if I perish, I perish.
So Mordecai the Jew spread the word throughout the city, and they did as Esther had commanded them.
If my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves.
And so, for 3 days, the Jews prayed and fasted.
Okay, I'm ready now. Bring me the most beautiful of all my dresses, one the king has never seen before. Then I will go to the king.
But your highness...
Say nothing. Just bring me my dress.
For stars above display, a loving God had made a great design. Before the planets flew, or Earth came into view, their form was fashioned in the Master's mind. Now we can see that from eternity His perfect wisdom carried out a plan. The mountains and the leaves, the deserts and the seas were laid with utmost care from pole to pole. And in my heart I know it surely must be so. God has a plan and pattern for my soul. Why am I here? The reason is so clear. He made me and He claims this life of mine. Now I can see the plan God has for me. My destiny is in His will divine.
Oh, I'm trembling. If the king doesn't hold out his golden scepter to me, I've had it. But all my people are praying for me. God, make me strong.
Who goes there? Guards! Esther? Come forth, my dear. What could be so important that you have come without my bidding?
Your Highness, if I have found favor in your sight, can you and Haman dine with me tonight?
My dear, I would do anything for you. I would give you half my kingdom. As for Haman, I will send for him, and yes, we will come.
Esther, the king, and Haman have just finished eating. The king is now completely satisfied and says as much.
Oh, Esther, that was delightful. I enjoyed the dessert as well. Haman, remind me to add chocolate-covered frog legs to my list of favorites.
And as for me, it was a privilege too.
But now, I can tell something is troubling you. What can I do for you? It isn't a thing I wouldn't do.
Your Highness, if I have found favor in your sight, can you and Haman dine with me again tomorrow night? Then, I promise you, I'll answer your question.
You crack me up, Esther. I offer you anything in the kingdom, and all you ask is to dine again. Of course we will come. Same time, tomorrow.
The king and Haman both exit, and each go their separate ways. The king to his quarters, and Haman through the courtyard to his house. Haman is so gloating over his second invitation to dine with the king and with the queen that he barely notices everyone bowing as he passes. However, he comes back down to earth as he sees Mordecai the Jew once again not bowing. Inwardly he seethes with anger, but refuses to let Mordecai bother him as he walks on.
Zeresh, my dear, you guys, I just had the most awesome day. The queen invited the king and me, to dine with her. And to top it off, the queen invited me, and the king to dine with her again tomorrow.
Wow, you surely are their favorite.
Perhaps he will bestow more honors on you.
I have everything I have ever wanted. I am the king's right-hand man. I have more riches than most men, and I have many children. Yet, despite all this, I am still unhappy, and will be, as long as Mordecai, the Jew, still lives.
Perhaps you can build a gallows higher than any other ever built and hang him on him right after the queen's banquet, and then you can live freely.
Zeresh, that is a great idea. Why didn't I think of that? Steward, here is a command. Carried out immediately. Have the men build a gallows that is at least 25 feet tall.
Taller.
50 feet tall.
Taller.
75 feet tall.
Yes.
And it must be done by tomorrow. Oh, I can just hear it now. The drums roll and then boom! Mordecai is gone out of my life forever. Tomorrow can't come soon enough.
That very same night, far into the morning, the king couldn't sleep anymore, so he decided to make better use of his time.
Steward!
Yeah?
Read for me from the Book of Records.
Book of records. Lots of records. Well, this page tells... Two of the king's men tried to kill the king. Mordecai happened to be overhearing them. Plain and reported it right away so that the king's life was spared.
I slightly remember this incident. Was that Mordecai ever given a reward?
Nah, I don't think so.
Something must be done about that.
At this point, Haman comes by to ask the king if he could hang Mordecai the Jew on the gallows which he had prepared. But before Haman has a chance to speak, the king asks,
Haman, just the man I was looking for. If I were to want to honor a particular man, how would you suggest I do it?
Of course, Haman thought the king was referring to him. After all, who else would the king want to honor? So he said,
The man whom the king would like to honor? Why, your highness. Let the royal robe which the king himself wears be draped around his shoulders, and let him ride the king's own horse, and let him wear the king's own crown, and then command the most royal of all the princes to lead him throughout the city and proclaim his great deeds before all the people.
I love it, Mordecai. That's why I keep you. Take this. Robe off my very back, the crown off my very head. Get my horse and grab him, Mordecai. Grab Mordecai, parade him through the streets, and proclaim how he saved the king's life.
Yes, your highness.
shocked though Haman was, he had to do as the king had commanded him. He led Mordecai through the city in great honor.
This is the man the king would have to honor. This is the man the king would like to honor. This shall be done for the king. The man the king would like to honor. This is the man the king wants to honor. This is the man.
After this, Haman went home, a defeated man.
Zeresh! 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 Zeresh!
What? You look horrible!
I feel horrible. Today, I had to leave.
I beg your pardon, but I was sent to summon you to the Queen's banquet.
Is it that time already? Okay, let's go.
So once again, for the second night, the king and Haman have finished eating.
Esther, it was another fine meal. But now, what is troubling you? What can I do?
Your Highness, if I have found favor in your sight, and if it pleases you, please spare my life and the life of my people.
What do you mean?
We are forced to be destroyed so that one man can gain from our deaths.
Who would do such a thing?
Our enemy and adversary is this evil Haman.
Haman? No, but it's true. It's been written all over your face. You have used my authority for your own selfish self-interests. I must be given a moment to think.
Your Highness, please, I beg you, don't spare my life. Be gracious to me. I didn't know they were your people.
Step away from the Queen! How dare you approach her? Guards, take him away.
Sir, Haman's men have just built the tallest gallows ever made. They intended to use it to hang Mordecai.
Stop! Bring him back. Send for Mordecai immediately. Hold out your hand. Hold out your hand. Hang him from the very gallows he meant for Mordecai. Esther, you cannot reverse my decree, but it is not too late. Mordecai, take this ring of authority. Use it to arm your people so that you may protect yourselves.
Throughout the country, Jews took up arms, and their enemies were defeated. The kingdom then prospered under Mordecai's leadership. The events in Esther's life were not just coincidental, but planned of God. Esther faced each decision of her life with what God would have her to do, and trusted him to enable her to do it. Consequently, though taking that first step before the king was difficult, she was rewarded with the joy of being the instrument in fulfilling God's purpose for her people. To this day, it is a Jewish custom to celebrate God's salvation against their enemies and their enemies' intent to kill them. It is called the Feast of Purim. They reenact the story yearly as a reminder of God's power over adversity. It is the favorite among many of the Jewish holidays.
I want to thank all of you for coming. I'd also like to thank all the performers and the folks who worked hard behind the scenes to make it happen. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed presenting it. Now, we have last words from our precious pastor. He was the bad guy in the play. But in real life, he's everything that Haman isn't. Our pastor,
I'm not sure I will ever actually get over how easy it was for Mickey to cast me as Haman. This young lady, Jewish name Hadassah, Esther, was amazing. And I thought that Amy did an incredible job with that. The amazing thing about that story is it's not a story, it's true. It happened about 2,500 years ago. The Jews left over from the Babylonian captivity in the land of Persia were there living their lives actually quite contentedly. But there's an enemy of God. There's an enemy of God's people who is always active. And he used this evil man, Haman, to try and stop God's plan. But God uses people to accomplish his plan. God is always working in the background, isn't he? Have you ever felt like God is invisible? Well, he is. Have you ever felt like God isn't really there? He is really there. He's in a king's insomnia. He's in Mordecai being at the right place at the right time, the right person, as we spoke about this morning. God is there. And what is he doing? He's bringing about salvation for people who can't save themselves. And that, my friends, is the message of the Bible. We can't save ourselves. Why do we have the 10 Commandments? To obey them? Well, yeah, but there's a better reason and a deeper reason. To show us that we are not good enough to save ourselves, right? We can't do that. But God can. And again, that is the message of the Word of God. And we see it in the Bible over and over and over and over again. What is our role? To respond as did Mordecai and Esther in faith. Despite fear. Was Esther afraid? For good reason. But she stood tall. And she trusted herself to the God who saves. And that is what this story is about, and that is our appeal to you. For any listening to this, maybe you've heard this story for the first time, maybe you've heard it many times, but right now you're understanding that this is about something that has eternal significance. An eternity with God or not. And it all comes not by our being good enough, but by our trusting in God who works salvation. And of course, we know today something that Mordecai and Esther could have never known. Jesus Christ, who provided the payment for us. When you break something, you got to pay for it, right? At least that's the way it used to be. And when we break God's law, we need to pay for it. But we can't. We can't. Jesus did for our salvation. So do what Mordecai and Esther did. Trust him. Follow him. Give your life to him. And you will find salvation. Thank you so much for coming. It was a delight this evening. Thank you for laughing and enjoying it. And may God bless you with faith and joy as you pursue his salvation. God bless. Good night.